Hello and welcome to the video on the Business 222, the Business Communications course on the presentation on short papers and what we expect of them. The first thing to realize regarding these short papers is the main thing is we expect you to apply the principles in the course. There are separate videos, slides, materials for a whole bunch of different lessons, 18 of them in all. You can see them over here later on in the syllabus: professional communication, collaboration, communication, planning, writing, completing messages, specific rules that apply to digital media and social media, visual media, that's videos, things like that, writing negative messages, persuasive messages. Essentially, each of these chapters, each of these lessons has various principles that we expect you to be able to apply. So that's really what these are based on. If you say, do I have to learn anything else besides for these materials? Not really, because I mean there are some materials, there are some of these that require a little bit of research, as we'll see. But for the most part, what you're doing is you are applying the principles that we have that you've learned in this course. You don't have to apply other ideas, from outside the course or other research, except where you're specifically told. So that's really, in other words, the question that we get a lot is, okay, where do I get the information to do these assignments? The answer is you just simply apply the principles that are in this course. That's the main number one rule. If we see that you've obviously watched and applied these principles, you'll do well on the assignments. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at these one at a time. First of all, we do provide you fairly comprehensive grading rubrics explaining what for each paper. For example, on the short paper, we're going to grade you based on organization, writing style, and whether it addresses the questions. And we also, in this grading rubric, give you kind of a guide, a signpost for what sorts of things we're looking for. For example, in an excellent paper, in terms of organization, introduces the topic, addresses each topic distinctly, ends with an appropriate conclusion, whereas a good paper, let's say a B, like an 85, maybe introduces the topic, addresses the topic, and ends with a conclusion, but not quite as well as an excellent paper does, whereas an acceptable paper, which is maybe a C, is organized so that the questions are adequately addressed, but not very well, whereas an unsatisfactory paper, obviously, this is the one you want to avoid, the bottom line for each of these, if it's confusing and hard to follow. And again, for each of these assignments and for each dimension upon which you're graded, you're given a kind of a grading rubric which synopsizes what we're looking for an excellent paper, what we're looking for a good paper, what we're looking for an acceptable paper, and what constitutes, unfortunately, an unsatisfactory paper, which is obviously the one you want to avoid. Okay, so let us take a look at the individual papers. Here we go. Okay, first of all, we expect them to be each approximately 300 to 600 words long, which is about 1 to 2 pages. This page, for example, that I'm looking at right now, which starts up here and goes down here, is 340 words. So a paper, and this has some bullet points, but on the other hand, it doesn't have, it's mostly filled. Generally speaking, the papers you're about 300 words a page, so it's going to be about 1 to 2 pages. If it's longer than 2 pages, it's probably longer than it has to be. If it's under 1 page, you could probably fill it up a little bit, but that's approximately the guideline you're going to be looking for. So if you have a very small font and you have 500 words on a page and yours is 300 words, that's fine. But again, this is a fairly good guideline. We expect you to cite papers in MLA or APA format, or if you want to use Chicago also, we didn't specifically exclude that. You can use that also if that happens to be your preference. It doesn't matter that much. We do have some materials on MLA formatting. That's the one we recommend. There are also some really good resources on how to format things in APA or in MLA formatting online. You can use those. That's fine. They should generally follow the structure of the 5-paragraph essay, the introductory paragraph, the 3 body paragraphs, and the conclusion paragraph, where you kind of tie everything together. They don't have to be exactly 5 paragraphs, but that should at least be the structure. If the meat of your essay is 4 paragraphs long, or 2 paragraphs long, or 6 paragraphs long, nothing inherently wrong with that, but that is the general format you're going to look for. An introductory paragraph introducing everything, explaining what you're going to do, a body where you cite your evidence, explain yourself, and then a conclusion where you tie everything together. Okay, let's take a look at number one. Number one is the most classic five-paragraph essay. This is kind of a research paper, but the good news is you really don't have to do a lot of research because the information here is in the course. You're not really necessarily expected to cite outside things over here. Explaining the importance of professional corporate communicators and what it means to have excellent business communication, and you should address what is business communication, why is it important, in what ways can you ensure that the business communicators are professional, and in what ways can unprofessional or ineffective business communication hurt an organization. So this is the classic five-paragraph essay because you're going to kind of introduce the topic of what you're going to cover in the first paragraph. Then you're going to have meat explanation paragraphs here. Again, you might have 4 paragraphs here because there are 4 questions to be addressed. On the other hand, you might be able to do it in 3. You might think that, 5 is more appropriate. Nothing wrong with that. And then kind of a conclusory paragraph to kind of tie everything up. But the information that you need is all in this course. There are specific chapters, there are elements of the study guides, there are elements of the video lessons that cover all of these. Once you've watched all of these, you should have all that information. If you want to use outside sources, can you? Sure, absolutely. You definitely can. If you cite other sources, if you use other sources and you want to quote them, you should definitely quote them, cite them in MLA format or APA format, whatever it is. Obviously, you don't want to plagiarize, but this is a pretty straightforward communication. We expect you to be well organized, we expect you to be informative, and we expect you to be obviously accurate. You don't want to say things that are completely not true. Okay, number 2 is assignment 2 is writing a business message. You'll be provided with a flawed business communication, an email, a note from a supervisor to employee, a customer service response, something with something glaringly wrong. We're not going to give you an almost perfect communication and ask you to challenge it. We're going to give you something that has some really major problems with it. Either it's too harsh, or it's too vague, or it's non-communicative. It doesn't suggest remedies. It doesn't explain what the supervisor or what the person wants. It doesn't clearly communicate what the issue is. There'll be some problem that is discussed in this course. In this course, there's a lot of discussion of statements that are too verbose, or statements that are too negative, or statements that don't explain what it is the writer wants, statements that are too technical, statements that are not technical enough, that write in layperson's terms when should be in expert's terms, or in expert's terms that should be in layperson's terms. All of these are problems in the course, and there will be problems that are discussed in the course in these business communications. And so really the first thing we expect you to do is be able to identify those problems. So we'd like an essay, kind of like a 5-paragraph essay. It doesn't have to be as long, obviously, but we would like an essay explaining what the problems are, with an introduction, with a meat. Business communication should have this, that, and the other thing. This thing does not have this virtue. It's not concise. It's not clear. It's not respectful. It's not in the proper tone. And then you explain why A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There are this problem, that problem, the other problem, and then we expect you to rewrite the communication. Fix the email. Just rewrite. It's not going to be a long one. I'm not going to give you a 10-page opus. The email will be a few paragraphs long. The email will be maybe a couple hundred words long at most, and you will be expected to rewrite it. That doesn't mean you have to totally discard the original. You could probably salvage or even use most of the language from the original. Nothing wrong with that, but just fix the problems. The original might have been a pretty good communication, or at least have the right ideas in it, but there were 3 or 4 problems with it. Its tone wasn't good. It wasn't specific enough. It was too negative. Well, okay, so you make the tone better. Explain that the tone is wrong because of this, and explain whatever, and then in your fix, make the tone a little more positive. Make it a little more specific. Do whatever you need to do to fix it. If you've taken our business writing course, this is fairly comparable to the assignment number 2 there, which gives you basically the same idea, where you're given emails or communications with problems, and you're asked to fix those problems, and then to write something that redoes what the problematic one The third one is kind of similar, and fourth, really the third and fourth one are really kind of similar to number two. A lot of these are pretty similar because they're all, based on business communications. Analyzing a press release. We will discuss in the course what the appropriate way to communicate through mass media is. We've got over here, we've got things in terms of how to distribute things in digital media, how to distribute things in social media. Part of these ideas are establishing press releases or establishing things for the general public. They don't necessarily have to be for the press. They could be advertisements, for the public in general. These are all things that are kind of covered in this middle, part of the course: visual media, social media, digital media. Well, social media is really assignment number 4, but assignment number 3 has a lot of the same elements to it. Okay, there it is. Okay, is this a good press release? Is the press release missing information? What is missing? Is the press release effective or ineffective? Evidence obviously doesn't mean outside evidence of what happened with the press release, because the press release might be totally fictitious. Okay, but what about it is effective? If we learned in the course that an effective press release is concise, and the one that you're provided has 3 sentences to say the same thing, you say, okay, it's not effective because it's too verbose. It doesn't get the message across. It doesn't get the message across in a way that consumers will appreciate, or consumers will be able to understand, or consumers will get the idea. That's an important thing in terms of number 3. If you're a member of the media, would you publish or convey this information? That really kind of depends on, okay, do you think, is there a problem in terms of its maybe honesty or ethics? Is there something obviously unethical about it, or is there something, does it make it obvious that you're trying to pull the wool over the consumer's eyes? If that's the case, if you're a newspaper publisher and you see something that is, trying to fool the consumer, or you think it's trying to fool the consumer, then you're probably not going to publish it. You don't want to ruin your reputation with your readers, with your clients, essentially. So what about this course? Again, really, it's more comparable to assignment number 1 than assignment number 2, because assignment number 2, you're rewriting it. Here, you don't even have to rewrite it. What you're writing an essay answering the following questions. One essay. You don't have to write a separate essay for all of these. But again, it should be that classic 5-paragraph style essay where you have an introduction of what a good press release should have, and then you have kind of a meat of explaining why this does not have it or this does have it. We're going to give you one with some flaws so that you can take the negative side if you like. Although the one we give you might also have some positive sides, so there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. But critiquing it is probably going to be usually your best bet. But anyway, then you have the final paragraph kind of tying everything together and explaining, okay, the press release was problematic for this reason, that reason, and the other reason. But these are the 4 questions that you want to answer. They don't have to all be in separate paragraphs. In other words, these 3 are all kind of included in number 1. Is the press release missing information? Well, if it's missing information, then it's not a good press release. So, if you attack this, is it missing information? If you attack that in 1 paragraph, and you attack effectiveness or ineffectiveness in the 2nd paragraph, and you attack whether you would publish it to your audience in another paragraph, well, that's the sort of thing that can kind of give you an idea, give you the ability to conclude whether it's a good press release or not. Maybe in your concluding paragraph, you can answer the question of whether it's a good press release, because now you've already established all of your evidence by going through the other questions. So this might be a pretty good paradigm for the 5-paragraph essay, explaining what a good press release has to have or should have. 1 paragraph explaining whether it was missing information, another one explaining whether it was effective or ineffective and why, another one explaining whether you would feel comfortable as a member of the media publishing it, and then kind of a 5th paragraph, a conclusion explaining overall why it was a good press release. You could say it was a pretty good press release, but it had some problems. You could say I would have changed X, Y, Z, but other than that, the press release was fine. There's no inherent right or wrong answer there, but again, it's a pretty good candidate for a 4-paragraph essay. Assignment number 4, kind of similar to assignment 2, where here you're also being asked to write a critique and then rewrite it. find a person's or company's LinkedIn or Facebook profile. We'll provide one for you if you like. We may even provide some sample ones that you could use, but if you want to go out and find your own, that's fine as well. You can write an essay describing whether the profile is professional. We will discuss in the course issues regarding professionalism of social media profiles and what they should do, how they should be applied, and you'll take those concepts. Doesn't have to be that many of those concepts. Maybe it'll only be 2 or 3 important concepts that you're going to be dealing with in this essay, depending on the profile you're looking at. And you're going to explain again in a classic 5-paragraph essay format, what a good social media profile should have, what one problem with the social media profile is would be one paragraph, another problem would be a second paragraph, another problem would be a third paragraph, and then kind of a synopsis of what you might do to change it, or whether overall you think that was a good profile. That would be an example of how you could establish a 5-paragraph essay for this assignment, and then rewrite the main part of the profile to make it sound more professional, obviously to the extent that it was unprofessional. You don't have to rewrite the name or the address or things like that, but the main part of the profile, which is the part where essentially you tell the employers what is good about you. I am a social media producer for the last 16 years, and I've done this and that and the other thing, and how would you change whatever the profile is in order to make it a little bit better. So those are the 4 papers, and then we've got the business presentation. Now the business presentation is kind of a mixed assignment where there's a writing element and there is a video element. The written element is the outline. It doesn't have to be a 5-paragraph essay. It doesn't have to be 300 to 600 words long. There's no real limit on how short or long it could be, but we do want an outline. In other words, we want kind of a bullet point explanation of what points are you going to make, and you need to do a product. Again, we can suggest a product for you. It's not a big deal, but there are zillions of products out there. Use a product that you have familiarity with. You could pretty much use whatever product you like. And create a sales presentation. What's great about this product. We prefer you don't use something that's already marketed, 12 million different ways. If you're going to use the iPhone, it's just, you can do it, but it's, kind of cliche just to tell everybody how great the iPhone is, because everybody's got one. We all know about the iPhone. Not everybody, but a lot of people have one. And, but if you have, they're a new invention. There are truckloads of them. You can go to Amazon.com and you can find things. I don't know, let's just say the Nintendo DS. I was just, poking around on Amazon. Is this a good product? Now, you might not know anything about it. If you have it at home, it would be even better. You'd be able to make a better sales presentation. But even if you don't, you can read the reviews. If I wanted to, for example, write something about this product over here, Amazon's got, tons of reviews on all these products. You can see over here um, there are 99 reviews of this particular product, and 71% of them are 5 stars. 2% is 1 star. So if you want to make a good review about a product, you can read these and look at how great they are or how not good they are. You can pick any product you like. It could be something as disparate as that as a special kind of gaming keyboard, or you could just poke around on Amazon or something like that, and you can find, essentially an infinite number of different types of products, and you can use any of them. But we recommend that you find something maybe a little bit off the beaten path that you use. Do you have really good experience with a particular type of, Fitbit, or a tablet, or it could be anything. It's something that a really good type of pot with a cute little nuance that makes sure that you don't burn your hand. Whatever it is, just pick a product, preferably that you have some knowledge of, but establish a presentation. Using the materials in the course, using the structure of the course, the ideas discussed in the lessons, and put together, highlighting an outline highlighting the positive points and what it is you want to sell to this person, and figure out who your audience is. Obviously that's a very big part of the course, figuring out who your audience is and helping that make the determination of how you sell the product. Okay, so include a minimum of 3 sources. Could be any sources that you find anywhere, pretty much. Properly cite them. A video recording of the presentation. That's kind of a speech. We included another video from our public speaking course in terms of how to, physically create the video and upload the video and submit it to us. But this could be a 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. Like in the speech course, we've got 20-minute speeches. This doesn't have to be a 20-minute speech. It should be delivered extemporaneously, which means that you can use index cards, you can use notes, but we don't want you to read it. Reading a salesperson in real life, a salesperson is never going to read a sales pitch to somebody. It looks kind of ridiculous to do that. Using appropriate business attire doesn't mean you have to wear a suit necessarily. A button-down shirt and a tie will be fine. I think that's most appropriate if you could wear, if you're a man, obviously. But again, we're not going to be. You don't have to necessarily wear anything fancy. Just something that looks decent, that looks normal. Okay, so that's kind of a brief outline of these 5 things. Again, we highly, highly recommend that when you're preparing to do these, that you read these rubrics, which give you a synopsis of what is expected on each dimension of these things, what an excellent paper is, what a good paper is. If you see what we look for in an excellent paper, it'll be a lot easier for you to write an excellent paper. And so hopefully you'll do that. So thank you very much, and let me know if you can. Generally speaking, if you have any questions, you could email us. The best, try us at grading@coopersmithcc.net. That's probably the best email address to reach us. So you can go ahead and reach us that way if you like. And thank you very much, and good luck.